During Solomon's reign, his wisdom spread across the world. Traders carried the stories on desert caravans and sea routes. They spoke of a king whose wisdom built treasure, whose ships brought gold, and whose cities rose in strength. His judgments were fair, his knowledge was deep, his wealth was great. Far away in the South Kingdom, a queen heard the reports from her high merchant, Tamarin. He had traveled to Jerusalem with caravans of trade. There he found a kingdom where gold from Ophir was consumed without limit. He walked the courts of the temple and the king's palace, built with cedar and stone. He saw silver treated as common, wealth flowing like water. He returned with stories of wisdom, power, and glory beyond measure. The Queen of Sheba. Her land was rich with spices, gold, and trade. She was strong, sharp of mind, and honored even by neighboring kingdoms. But one question burned in her heart. Was Solomon's wisdom truly greater than mine and all others? Sheba began to prepare her troop, not an army for war, but a force to test a king. Tamarin, her high merchant, had returned like a spy, filling her court with stories of Solomon's glory. The queen answered with plans of her own. She commanded treasures to be gathered, spices piled high, gold stacked in heaps, jewels glittering in baskets. Camels and horses stood ready by land, ships prepared at sea. The wealth of Sheba would march before her like a weapon. Yet treasure was not enough. She summoned her wisest men, traditional astronomers who read the stars and the movements of the heavens, priests of Shams, keeper of the sun, who claimed their god stood above all others. With wealth and wisdom bound together, Sheba prepared to meet Solomon and to prove his strength. As Sheba's troops touched the borders of ancient Israel, the news raced ahead like fire. Jerusalem trembled. Whispers filled the streets. Would this mighty queen come to conquer us, or would she bow before our king? But Solomon heard more than rumors. He received the true report. The Queen of Sheba was coming, leading a caravan heavy with wealth, guarded by intellects and lifted by priests of the sun. She brought her treasures. She brought her wisdom. She brought her gods. So Solomon prepared in greater strength. He readied the house of the Lord, where no idol could stand. He set his palace and throne in splendor beyond gold. He called upon the wisdom God had given him, higher than her study of reading the stars and the movements of the heavens. And he stood with the nation chosen by the Most High, greater than any kingdom on earth. Solomon and his court remained inside the city. Then came a second report. The mighty queen was not coming with the sword. The people of Jerusalem poured out beyond the walls. They left their king within, while they climbed to every height to see her. Some clung to treetops. Some stood upon the city walls. Others crowded the hillsides. All eyes fixed on the road, waiting to behold the mighty Queen of Sheba. And at last she appeared. Her front troop came first, the desert shaking beneath the march of camels and horses. Drums pounded, dust rose in clouds, banners snapped in the wind. Camels groaned under the weight of gold, spices and jewels. Servants shouted orders as the caravan stretched farther than the eye could see. At the center rode the queen herself, lifted high in splendor, commanding every gaze as she reached the gates of Jerusalem. At last, Solomon came forth from the city, surrounded by his royal protocol. His nobles walked at his side, clothed in garments of honor. Priests of the Lord followed, bearing symbols of holiness. The commanders of his guard stood in ranks, their spears lifted high. Together they moved toward the gates of Jerusalem to receive the queen. Jerusalem burst with shouts of happiness. One gaze turned toward their king at the front, the other toward the mighty queen and her troop. King to queen, priests of Shams facing priests of Levi, guards of Solomon standing against guards of Sheba, treasures of Sheba set against the soil of Jerusalem. The people watched, each one choosing what to behold, and rejoiced in the sight. Trumpets sounded. The Levites sang the songs of God. The strings of David were played by musicians. The royal protocol broke the front, and the procession began. From the queen herself, to the priests of Shams, to the scholars she brought, all entered Jerusalem. At the head walked King Solomon and Queen Sheba, leading the front together. Finally, the queen entered Solomon's court, accompanied only by her scholars of the stars and the moon. The priests of Shams remained outside, watching in silence, their eyes fixed on the holy city and its temple. Within the court, the noise of the crowd faded. The queen walked with the bearing of one who commands nations, her jewels catching the light, her intellects close at her side. She entered not as one seeking favor, but as one testing whether this king's glory could stand beside her own. Then she lifted her voice, clear and proud. "I have crossed deserts and seas to stand in this place. I bring with me the wisdom of the heavens, the riches of kingdoms, and the knowledge of nations. Tell me, King of Israel, can your wisdom measure against mine? Can your understanding reach as high as the stars, as deep as the earth, as wide as the sea?" The moment had come. Dominance against dominance, wisdom against wisdom, truth against truth. Solomon did not rush to answer. The court held its breath, waiting. Then the king spoke, his voice calm, steady, and filled with authority. "Queen of Sheba, you have come far, and your greatness is known among nations. Will you stand here with wisdom, with treasures, and with strength? Yet wisdom is not lessened when it meets wisdom. Knowledge is not diminished when it is shared. Ask what is in your heart, and you will see whether the Lord has set true understanding in me." The court grew still. Respect had been given, yet the challenge remained. The queen did not hesitate. She raised her voice again, but now her words turned heavy and veiled, like clouds carrying thunder. She spoke of the heavens and the earth, of creation and the Creator, of empires rising and kingdoms falling. Her questions wove together the stars above and the soil beneath, life and death, power and weakness. To the crowd of Solomon's court, it was a storm of words, lofty and strange, a tongue they could not easily follow. Yet this was not a matter of language, but of depth. The tongue of Sheba and the tongue of Hebrew were near in root and had not yet grown far apart. They could hear one another, but her words were wrapped in mystery, the wisdom of ancient nations spoken in riddled form. Her eyes fixed on Solomon, and with each phrase she measured his silence, waiting to see if Israel's king could stand where others had fallen. Solomon listened, as each question struck like thunder, yet his answers came steady and clear. He spoke of creation and the order of the heavens, of the rivers that carve the earth, and the winds that circle the seas. He unfolded the patterns of life, of justice and mercy, of the hand of the Creator guiding all things. His voice did not rise, yet it carried weight. His words did not dazzle, yet they pierced with light. What the queen cast in mystery, Solomon opened with clarity. What she veiled in depth, he laid bare in truth. The queen heard Solomon's answers. Then the court moved to the midday meal, and Sheba also sat at the king's table. But she was not at ease. Food was before her, yet it seemed tasteless. Her mind stayed fixed on Solomon's words. After many back-and-forth questions in private, the queen at last understood. She was not defeated by a wisdom born of men, but by a wisdom given to men. Then she lifted her eyes to Solomon and spoke. "What I heard in my land was true, yet not even half was told to me. Your wisdom is greater than the human mind can hold. Blessed are your people, who stand each day in the light of your counsel. Blessed is the Lord your God, who has set you on the throne of Israel." Her words rang out, public praise of the Lord's greatness, echoing through Solomon's court and beyond walls of Jerusalem. Then Sheba and Solomon prepared for a contest. Her star and moon watchers stood against Israel's chosen men of knowledge. The Levites faced the priests of Shams. Some were defeated, some shared knowledge with the others. But one thing was not shared, only surrendered: the truth of the one Creator, the one true God. In this, the priests of Shams fell forever. The queen, with her priests, bowed to the truth and surrendered to the Lord, the God of Israel. The queen turned to the treasures she had brought and laid them before Solomon. 120 talents of gold, mountains of spices, and stones of rare worth. Never again would Israel see such abundance in spices. Her gifts were not for challenge, not mere tribute to earth and empire. It was an act of reverence, a tithe to the God of Israel. She had come to test the king, and instead found the truth of his God. After 6 months in Jerusalem, the Queen of Sheba turned toward her kingdom. Yet she carried more than gold or memories. She bore the light of the Lord. Her Shem's priests, once servants of the sun, now turned as priests of the true God. Her people would still honor the sun and stars. The queen knew the truth of Israel's God. Her journey bound her name into history. Generations would speak of her visit as proof that Solomon's wisdom drew the nations. Yet the greater truth was this: the Lord is no small God of hills or tribes, but king over heaven and earth, his light stretching far beyond Jerusalem. The people of ancient Israel kept the queen's visit in their hearts. To them it was the promise to Abraham coming true before their eyes. Through Abraham's line, this was a start of nations' blessing beyond Israel. A queen came seeking wisdom and power, but she left praising the true God. For Israel, it was more than Solomon's honor. It was a sign that they were called to shine among the nations. From that day, the land of Sheba bore the mark of Israel's God. In Abyssinia, the great mass of the people embraced Judaism, shaping their life and kingdom around the law of Moses, until Christianity came in later centuries. Across the Red Sea in Yemen, powerful kings and clans also turned to Judaism, giving the faith deep roots in the land. When Christianity and later Islam rose, these lands turned again to new paths. Yet the memory of Sheba's queen endured, a witness that even distant nations could be drawn to the God of Israel, whose light reaches to every land.